Hello.
We're the only ones. Nobody else is on.
So
But
it's
you'll
set.
see if they join. Yep.
Oh, fine, perfect. All right. Thank you so much for all your help. Okay. Let me just get everything. I'm going to start giving out the sheets. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to start giving them out already because now I also have this screen here. So it's like a little crazy.
Stay on
I
screen.
know it's like crazy. All right.
Let
So
me
this,
hand out one thing.
that would be great. So wait, so you start with this. We're going, right, we'll do that.
Both
And then we're going,
messiahs.
and then we're going to do this one first.
Okay.
Oh, perfect. Give these, perfect, perfect. Thank you. Right, so put that one on top, right, and that will be the second one. We're gonna do the smicha debate first, right? And then we'll do those false messiahs. Yeah, that, double copy. Okay. All right, excellent. Okay. And then I always have extra for, but hopefully we're not.
Messiah's back.
Yeah, the balance of these, yeah, so I'll have it all hooked up.
Teacher, I always hope that.
Right.
You know, we have Mishugas.
Of course. It's fine. All right.
You know, I don't teach for so many years, yet I have lessons when I go.
No, well, you're so used to certain dera, right?
Yeah,
So,
that I'm always with a
Yeah.
lesson plan.
but I have to tell you, remember you gave me, I forget what it's called, Torah in Motion or whatever it is.
Yes, I listened to that.
So I signed up for
every day.
Shuli. Shuli starts today. Did you notice?
Did I notice what?
Shuli, remember Michigan? Remember?
Oh, yeah. Is she
She's starting today at
She said-
12 o'clock.
Good, yes, I wasn't sure, but
Yeah.
it's going to,
Yeah.
yeah,
She's wonderful. I mean, she like brings the Tanakh alive, and she shows you
yes, thank you.
exactly.
I wasn't sure, but now just,
Every-
yes, I was
every-
very sure.
She has my Enekomot.
What are you looking for?
So
Oh,
one for this and one for this. I'm giving this in there.
okay. Hello. Okay.
And
So,
there's several shiurim.
no. Yeah, I'll give him to you right now. It's just about 10 o'clock actually, so I do have to begin pretty soon. Okay. We're going to do the first sheet first. The one says great smicha debate. We had sort of ended on that last time, and then we'll do the one that says the false messiah, the DH checker. So stop. Want to do the first one first, and then we'll go to. So I don't have that little gadget where it's recorded. I guess, it's not necessary if I'm on. So she has me on the Zoom. I'm not going to look at the screen. It's going to drive me a little nuts. Should I begin? I mean, it is 10 o'clock.
Stand near the screen so they can see you.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Have to look at the screen.
Fine. Excellent. Okay. So when we had our last class, first of all, yes, I have to give you some extra info from my brother. Let me see where I wrote that. Hold on. We were talking about the fact of how you celebrate Purim in Israel. If it's Shushan Purim, not just Israel, in Yerushalayim, right? So I have checked with my brother, and now I can give you the report. Okay. So,
Did you put yourself on?
yeah, she got it all ready for me, Andrea, from the office. Well, wait, so here are two things that we're going to do today. Here's our shot. Okay. So you could almost say a little bit of, a little conflict there between those Jews who live in Jerusalem, which is, we know, is a very tiny community. I mean, when Bartanua first went there, he said there were like just 70 families. Okay, maybe by this time there's some more, but he came around this time period, maybe 25 years prior. So again, he's saying there are just 70 families in Jerusalem. They're poverty stricken, right? But the city of Tzfat is going to be attracting more Jews. So I read in one source that there might have been maybe twice as many Jews, possibly even 3 times as many Jews who do end up settling in Tzfat. So we have a little bit of rivalry, so to speak, between those Jews in Jerusalem and those Jews in Tzfat. It ends up in this 16th century that we're currently studying. I would say those Jews in Tzfat are definitely the more prominent individuals, but Jerusalem will have certain key people as well. So Okay. So the last we had been, we were talking about this man, his name is Ibn Chaviv, right? Who is the Rav in Yerushalayim, and there's a Rav Rav who's in Tzfat. And that's going to lead us then to that thing about the this great smicha debate that we're going to be talking about. Okay, absolutely. But first, I just want to get back to what did Ibn Chaviv do for those Jews in Yerushalayim when it is Shushan Purim and it falls on a Shabbos. So how does one celebrate Purim that particular year? It happened last year. I remember having a discussion with my brother then, but I didn't remember 100%. That's why I had to have another discussion with him too, and I'll share that with you soon. Obviously they must have figured something out up until Ibn Chaviv made this declaration, which they have followed since, but maybe again, very small population, people forgot, over the years. So this is how you celebrate Purim. Should you be in Yerushalayim even to this day? Again, so there was one last year. What did he tell me? There will be one in the year 2025. All right, we're now 2022. And then there'll be 20 years till it happens again. So it's a cyclical thing, that goes on. If Shushan Purim falls on Shabbos, how do you celebrate Purim? Well, of course it's a problem because it's Shabbos. And you don't read the Megillah. You don't read the Megillah on Shabbos. You have your regular readings. So how are you going to that? So this is what this Ibn Chaviv made this determining rule. You do not read Megillah on Shabbos. Nope. So this is what they do. The reason is for the same reason why we don't blow shofar on Yom Tov. We don't do lulav and esrog, if it's a Shabbos, because always a concern, well, somebody might carry, and therefore, that is the reason why you do not read the Megillah on Shabbos. Now, it never happens chutz la'aretz that Purim ever falls on a Shabbos. It just doesn't. But Shushan Purim, as I just told you, maybe a few dates, does periodically fall on Shabbos in Yerushalayim, and it's a walled city, so you don't celebrate regular Purim, you celebrate Shushan Purim. Okay, so this is what Ibn Chaviv made this determining law. This is how one should do it. So you go to shul then on Thursday night and Friday morning. That is when you, just like everybody else, chutz la'aretz, or outside of a walled city, you will hear the Megillah being read. And in conjunction with that, you also give matanos la'evyonim. Somehow those two halachos seem to go together. On Shushan Purim day itself, that means when it's Shabbos, you will add the Al HaNisim, which both to your, Shmona Esrei and when you're doing Birchat Hamazon. Then when it comes to, it's really the day after Shushan Purim, right, that's Sunday, that's when you have your Seudah and you give Mishloach Banos. So it's a little complicated because it's like you're celebrating Purim for 3 days, right? But different aspects on different days. So I did want to share all of that with you. I think that's what, so it's called Purim Mishulash, right? Because it's over a three-day period. Then I started asking him another question. One thing leads to the other. So I was asking my brother. I said, well, where exactly are the borders of Yerushalayim? I mean, right, we know the walled city, but this city has expanded ever since the 19th century outside the walls of the old city. So I said, and my God, if you go there to Yerushalayim now, oh my God, it keeps on expanding. So machlokas, naturally, there was a machlokas. So one Rav, I think he had the name correctly. His name is Rabbi Shmuel Salant. I don't know who he is. Said that where Shaarei Tzedek Hospital. I'm not sure if they mean the new one or maybe the old one, the original one, which is on Yaffo. Right. That used to be the end of the city of Yerushalayim. Anybody who lived from there then that would have applied to the extent of the borders of Yerushalayim. Okay, but that's one opinion. Okay. Obviously, not too many people follow that rule because that's not true. I mean, my brother lives in Har Nof, which is definitely beyond Shaare Zedek Hospital. Some say the other opinion is, well, as the city expands, as long as it's a continuous development, it's not like there's a huge field in between. Okay, so then the laws that apply to a walled city apply to those sections of Jerusalem as long as they're continuous from the walled city outward to whether they are. And Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach talks about what depends where you have your Eruv. I can't tell you that. I don't even, so it gets a little complicated. And I guess you just follow whoever, who you're, you have confidence in being your paskin, how one celebrates Purim and where the borders of Jerusalem go to. Okay, so now, we're already talked about this Ibn Chaviv. So we're going to find out about this great controversy that arose in Jerusalem in the 1500s. Okay. So if you take out that sheet that says the Great Smicha Debate, this is what we're going to learn. Okay. First of all, let's just understand. A lot of these Jews who are now coming to settle in Eretz Yisrael, they are actually coming from Spain/Portugal, right? After the expulsion of the Jews, they want to continue, living outwardly as Jews. And now they're also very excited to actually migrate to the land of Israel and live there and devote their lives to Torah in Israel. But mixed in with this, that's why I'm doing this in conjunction with these false messiahs who also came, to the fore around the same time period. There's this desire, if you think about what happens with Shabtai Tzvi and the rise of Hasidus, in the 1800s in Poland, it's also when things are so terrible. So, we have this great desire, Wahalafai, the Mashiach should come and save us and bring us the Geula, et cetera, et cetera. So it's sort of all mixed in with this. We also have at this time period the problem, well, what are we going to do with those Jews who are conversos? And we're not talking about living like that for 5 years or something. I mean, these could have been Jews who were living as conversos 100 or more years. And how do we accept them back into the fold of Judaism? Are they bona fide Jews? Do they have to go through some sort of a conversion process? So it was a difficult, time period, and it's going to last like this actually for a few hundred years. I mean, what to do with conversos who want to now rejoin, right, the Jewish people. So all these various things are floating around. This desire, for the Mashiach, that the Geula should come, and what should we do about these conversos? And that's going to lead us now into this business with the smicha.
The conversos, what I learned is usually being the word conversos, they never intermarriage. This is
At a certain point, right? Those, for example, I would say that those who go to live in Portugal, as I had mentioned prior times, those who moved to Portugal were those who truly wanted to live totally Jewish lives, even though once the Inquisition, well, first of all, the king forced them to be baptized. And then until the Inquisition came in the 1530s, they were leading good, pure Jewish life. It's after that 1536, I believe is the date, is when they now going to try to get out of Portugal because, they don't want, they're a fear of their lives and they're tired of living this double life regardless. But those Jews in Spain, that's the problem, is more the Spanish Jews, because some of them had already been converted already in 1391 when there's some terrible massacres against them. And so some leave in 1492. I was going to learn numerous Rabbanim, they, and obviously other Jews as well, they do leave in 1492, and some make their way to Italy, and then eventually they'll find their way to the Turkish Empire. A lot of them settle in Constantinople and Salonika. But what about those Jews who continue to remain in Spain? And that, again, it's not a large number, but what if any of those want to, at a certain point in time, right? We're now in the 1500s, and they somehow want to rejoin the Jewish people. Well, they've been living as Catholics for a pretty long time period. And how do we know that none of them intermarried? So there become more problematic. But even those coming from Portugal will eventually find their way, especially those Jews who go to parts of Western Europe, like in Holland and Amsterdam. Also, the question is going to arise. Can we just take them back in full force? Or again, do they have to go through some sort of re-education process to be accepted as 100% bona fide Jews? So anyway, so this is all floating around this time period, in the 1500s. But now we're talking about Eretz Israel. So how do the Rabbanim there, how are they going to get involved? So I already have told you that some Jews, those from Spain who leave at 1492, eventually, go to the Ottoman Empire, ultimately find their way into Jerusalem. And then we know that there's going to be this constant trickle of Jews from Portugal who are going to escape. They had to escape, so to speak, because legally they were not allowed to leave Portugal. That's the problem. So by hook or by crook, they gradually get their way out of Portugal and find refuge elsewhere, in the world. It gets a little complicated. You have to view the whole thing like a total picture and to understand, what's going on in the Jewish world at this time. Okay, so again, there's a lot of messianic fervor at this time because things are so bad and so terrible, and we're being expelled and being dispersed, to these foreign countries, new languages, new customs, and so we're hoping and praying, as we have through history, right, that the Mashiach should come. So that's part and parcel of it. And then this issue, well, how should we treat these conversos, these people now managing to get out of the Iberian Peninsula, and how should we deal with them? So this Rav, this Ibn Chaviv, tries to deal with this, but he wants to reset up the Sanhedrin. Now, the last Sanhedrin that had existed was in Tiberia in the 400s. There has been no Sanhedrin since. And it's only as the ultimate Jewish tribunal who could really make a decision, like that. Even in, for the past century on occasion, there's been a discussion of, Halavai, we should have, also have a new Sanhedrin established to deal with all the problems that float about in the Jewish world. Nobody can decide. That's why we have Rabbanim, and everybody picks the Rav that they want to follow. But in this day and age, again, it's only this Ibn Chaviv. He comes up with the idea. In the Rambam's Mishnah Torah, it states that if a majority of Jews, right, Rabbanim, get together in Israel, that they could then choose one of those Rabbanim to be the Rav who will give the smicha. Smicha is not what we have today. We're talking about a smicha from, like, so to speak, the train from Moshe Rabbeinu to Yehoshua, et cetera, et cetera. Was cut off in the 400s. I told you, the last Sanhedrin. So based on his reading and understanding of the Mishnah Torah, that if a large group of Rabbanim in Eretz Israel should get together, they could then choose a particular Rav who would, so to speak, the smicha would be bestowed upon that man, and that man in turn could then bestow the smicha onto others. And if you get together 70 of them, that would constitute Sanhedrin. Okay, so let's see what happens. So you all understand the scenario of what's going on here. Okay, so I'll just kind of fast go through what I have here typed out for you. So, okay, during that period immediately following Spanish exile, Jewish masses, where there was this tremendous fervor, Halavai, the Mashiach should come. Again, suffering throughout the Jewish world at this time. Be able to read everything that I have here. I'll just, you can read it privately. And, how can we bring about this final geula? Well, we need to reconstitute a Sanhedrin. And for that, we need to have people who have a bona fide samicha, right? Who could then sit on the Sanhedrin, right? So this is what the conflict is. All right. Okay, so let's see, I already discussed a lot. It's on page 1, so let's see what it says on page 2. Okay. So that first paragraph there, the full paragraph. Says towards the end of Rabbi Yaakov ben Ray, who lives in Tzfat, he proposes that, that's interesting. I don't know why he thinks this is okay. It's on page 2. So turn it over. It's on the verso, the second side, like Omid Aleph, Omid Bet, it's Omid Bet. Okay. You have to, so the Rav living in Tzfat at this time, this Ibn Chaviv is in Yerushalayim. I think I reversed them, sorry. Ibn Chaviv is living in Yerushalayim, and this Be'erav is living in the city of Tzfat. So he's the one who comes up with the idea and tries to galvanize the Rabbanim in the city of Tzfat. Now remember, the Mishnah Torah, how did the Rabbam say? It had to be majority of the Rabbanim in the land of Israel. He's making this decision. Well, most of the Jews are living in the city of Tzfat, and this is who he's appealing to. He's like, you could say, sort of like the chief rabbi of Tzfat. Okay, so he turns to them. And it's in the year 1538. Who again, they are the majority. I told you most of the great Rabbanim are living in Tzfat, not in Yerushalayim. He says, again, based on what the Rambam wrote in the Mishnah Torah, okay, here I have here the thing says Hilchos Sanhedrin, all right? That again, even though these are not ordained Rabbanim with the direct chain from Moshe Rabbeinu, but if a majority of them will get together and make the decision and determination to choose one of them to be the one who will then, in other words, as if they're granting him smicha, right? And he now in turn can, give smicha onto the other rabbanim, and ultimately that it will constitute 70 men to serve on a Sanhedrin. And he actually ordains like Rabbi Yosef Karo, who writes the Shulchan Aruch. He's one of those who's received samicha, right, from Be'erav. And another, we'll learn later about him, this Moshe Trani, and, and he also decides, he's also going, I don't know his magnanimity, he's going to also grant the samicha onto this Rav, Levi Ibn Chaviv, who is in Yerushalayim. Okay. All right. So again, that's a very small Jewish community. And how does he find out that has he been invited to come to this assembly of the Rabbonim in Tzfat, to make this, the granting of the smicha possible? He's not even invited. How does he find out that he has, so to speak, been granted smicha? He gets a letter, and that's how he finds out. He totally disagrees with what the Rambam's premise is, because I wouldn't say he totally disagrees. What he's disagreeing about is the Rambam wrote it has to be a large gathering of Rabbanim from all over Eretz Yisrael. Well, he was never included. No other Rav in Yerushalayim. Who's this Rav in the city of Tzfat making this determination? Oh, he now has the authority to grant smicha, and he's deciding, which Rabbanim should get this smicha. So he's very upset about it, and he refuses it. He says, I will not accept this smicha, from Rav, Be'erav. It says, so then the whole Jewish world gets involved. So the Rabbanim in Egypt at this time, we'll learn about a few of them. They totally disagree. That, who is this Rav Be'erav, just in the city of Tzfat? Who was he to decide that, even though the Rabbanim in Tzfat are backing him, but who was he then to be the one to grant it to Jews? And what about all those Rabbanim? We haven't even learned about them, but that at least half of the Jewish world is in our Ashkenazi Jews living at that point in Bohemia, that's would have been Czechoslovakia, and in Poland, and they have not been consulted at all.
But the Rambam says it's only the Rabbi of Eretz Yisrael.
Right, exactly. So that's why all these other Rabbanim disagree and say that this is null and void, because you didn't even include, all the Rabbanim in Eretz Yisrael. You consulted those just in your town of Tzfat, And so, this is not a bona fide smicha. Yes. No, it's not this smicha. This is a very special smicha. Nobody today would think, I mean, we have several great rabbanim and we have over the centuries, but none of them would ever have the audacity to say, okay, well, let's all get together and have a Sanhedrin. They don't, so some year, maybe when the Mashiach comes, it will become clear, who will have the authority to actually have this semicha coming all the way from Moshe Rabbeinu, and then to constitute 70 people to become a Sanhedrin. What? Yes, he wants a Sanhedrin. That's the reason why this whole semicha controversy arose, is because there are a lot of issues of the day, and he felt that only a Sanhedrin, would have that authority to make final determination, on how to handle a lot of issues, a lot of them dealing with conversos. Again, because most of these rabbanim, they're not, here and there I'll show you, some are native to Israel. Most of them are not. Most of them are Jews coming from Spain and or Portugal who find their way to the Ottoman Empire and then decide to live in Israel. All right. So this is what it is. And it says by the time this Beirav passes away in the year 1546, so the whole thing just petered out. He had a good idea, and he meant it in all good sincerity. On the other hand, had he just appealed at least to those Jews living in Jerusalem, and there are a very tiny Jewish community also in Hebron, very tiny, we don't hear too much about them, and maybe a very small one also possibly in Tiberia, but it's mostly those Rabbanim, right, this Ibn Chaviv who's in Jerusalem, who's so incensed, and then when all the other Jews, wherever we've been dispersed, hear about this, they all say, no, this maybe had good intentions, but this is, we cannot accept this, right? There cannot be he does not have the right, this Rav Beirav, to so to speak, grant semicha, this authentic semicha coming from Moshe Rabbeinu, and as a result, it cannot be called a proper Sanhedrin. All right, and to this day, obviously, we don't have, and we have had over the years many great rabbanim, but it just hasn't, we can't get a majority opinion. It wouldn't be nice if some of the rabbanim who live here in the U.S., who are revered, and so many of those living in Eretz Yisrael, if they could somehow get together. But it's, like every locale or yeshiva, they have just the particular rav that they look up to, and none of them get together and make a majority decision. Okay, so now let's learn. So at this same time, I want to get you so you can get a proper sense of what's going on in the Jewish world at the time. There are actually these two fascinating individuals who will be known at a certain point, not when they first appear on the scene, but that they are Nevi'ei Sheker, they are false messiahs. So I wanted to introduce them to you. And the first one we're going to talk about is David Reuveni. So we can sort of do this one together, and follow along with me as I do it. They are, and that makes me think of, it won't be till the mid 1600s, we have like Shavtai Tzvi, but it's a similar phenomenon. And again, just picture to yourself, this is after the expulsion of 1492, and then the forced baptism of Jews in 1497 in Portugal. And so many people are trying to leave now and live it. And believe me, things are miserable, up in Germany and Bohemia, and as they find some refuge in Poland, for a while. Expulsions, attacks on Jews. You can just imagine the atmosphere in the Jewish world at this time. So you can understand, right? You keep on hoping that a true Mashiach will come and bring this ultimate redemption. And, so you're looking. So now these charismatic people that I'm about to teach you appear on the scene.
I used to live in Jerusalem on Rehov Shlomo Malka.
Me too. I was in number 11.
And I was number 7, I think.
Did not know you then.
Close to Rehov Azar.
Yes. I remember thinking, so I spent my year in Israel was 1966, 67. I did,
That was before that.
okay, so I did live through the 6-Day War. I had that zuchus actually to be there for the reunification of Yerushalayim. Maybe I can talk to you about that one time, but it was a very exciting time period. But I got a room with a woman, Geveret Kilov. I forgot her first name, maybe Batia, I'm not sure Batia. Anyways, but Geveret Kilov, she was the mashgicha at Yeshivat Merkaz Harav. It was like Derech Hagav. It was my sister knew a young woman whose mother lived in Yerushalayim. I went to her house, and that woman introduced me to Geveret Kilov, and I guess I passed. So she allowed me, I could come, I live in her apartment. I rented a room there. Sometimes I felt like I had the whole apartment too. Anyways, but I remember being shocked that she lived on Rehov Shlomo Mochel. And I remember I had learned in Jewish history, that he was a Navi Shek. And I come like, why would they name a street in this holy city of Yerushalayim after this man? Okay.
It was a person that lived in his time.
So I went back with my son of about, I think it's almost 5 years ago to Yerushalayim. And I went to show him where I had lived. So I took him to Shlomo Mochel. You used to be able to just walk into the building and then go up to your apartment. But now it's locked from the outside. You need a key just to get even into the building, and for security purposes, I'm sure. Anyways, so now let's learn about who this man truly was. Okay, so around the year 1525, again, post 1492, just picture what's going on. And there are already living in, first of all, I will teach you separately about the Jews of Italy and some of the Rabbanim who come from this time period, but there has now been an influx of a lot of these Sephardic Jews who have come to find refuge in Italy. Okay, so now appears, I'll read the whole thing because I think it's kind of exciting to see this description. A short, stocky, swarthy man dressed as an Arab. He makes his appearance. He's in the city of Rome. No one ever heard of him before. And he announces, he's the emissary. He's like the ambassador, right? From his brother, his name is Yosef, who was king of a Jewish kingdom at somewhere, located somewhere in Arabia. Okay, well, there's no way to go and prove, in those days, is this true or not? So apparently in the year 1523, he first went to Cairo to make his first grand appearance, right? And he claimed then to be a descendant of the tribe of Reuven. So that's why he's called David HaReuveni. Okay. When he's in the city of Rome, he further claimed that the entire population of his brother's kingdom is descended from those 10 lost tribes of Israel. Okay. And that he's now the commander of the country's armed forces. What does he want? What's the object of his visit? Why is he, appearing, okay, as this ambassador, right? He wants to gain enough ammunition to arm a Jewish force to attack the Muslims, and bring it back into the fold. But he's appearing in a Catholic country, a Christian country. So let's see what he wants to do. Okay, so he's going to try to convince the Catholic forces, would mean the Pope, because he's the head of the church, that that he should, so to speak, be armed or given the money, right, to go and raise up a Jewish force to attack the Muslims, in the city of Jerusalem, because that's a holy city to all three faiths, to attack the Muslims from the east, and at the same time, the Christians, like the Crusades, can raise up an army and attack, and that's how they can regain the holy city of Jerusalem. So this is his scenario. This is what he's trying to convince. It will be the Pope he's trying to convince. He's not really trying to convince the Jews. He's convinced wants the Pope to back him. Okay. Okay. Right. So go on to the next thing. Okay. So meanwhile, though, the Jews, right, of Italy and now these conversos, who still exist, right? It's mostly in Portugal, hear about the appearance of this incredible, person. He's very colorful character, and wow, he even gets an audience with the Pope. And so they're thrilled. They're so excited, about this. They all think he's authentic. All right. This guy had really quite an imagination, about himself. Okay. And now there's, again, and it's appealing to the Jewish people to think, oh, if there actually exists a Jewish kingdom somewhere in far off Arabia, okay. Again, it will be a way for them to come to a final redemption and, be able to return to the Holy Land. Okay. All right. Let's go on. Okay, so go to the very end of that page. It says, David Reini's fame soon spread throughout the Sephardic world. I don't know what those Jews up in Ashkenaz, what they're thinking of this character, but his appeal is among the Sephardic Jews, right? And they can't imagine that. They're like very excited about this man's appearance. But some of them, several of the key Rabbanim there, they're saying, this doesn't, sound right. They're looking somewhat askance. Who is this character? I mean, we've never heard of him. We've never heard of this secret kingdom, So, they're casting a lot of aspersions now on who this David Reini. Meanwhile, I told you there is a following, just like with Shabtai Tzvi. I mean, you think about it, we'll learn about Shabtai Tzvi in 1648, 1650. Why did these thousands of Jews follow him and really believe, that he could have been the Messiah and returned them to the land of Israel? But I get when times are truly terrible, I guess you're looking for any little kernel of hope, And obviously, these are very charismatic individuals. There's something about them that appeals to your psyche, and you think they're bona fide, and that's why you follow them. Okay. Meanwhile, he teaches Torah to various conversos that he comes in contact with, and he comes across. So he finally goes to Lisbon. He's in Portugal. Now, remember, at this point, it's sort of around the time when the Inquisition really doesn't come into a little later, into the 1530s in Portugal. Maybe that's why they brought it in after these characters. So apparently he's still able to meet with these conversos, and the authorities don't really care. That they know that these conversos are secretly practicing Judaism. It's only when the Inquisition comes in that they can really have to go totally underground. Okay. And he meets another person there. His name is, again, I'm on that page 2, now that large paragraph. It says, during this, there appears among the conversos of Portugal a young man. His name at that point is Diego Perez. All right. You see, he only lived for 32 years. He was a young man when he loses his life. He, again, as a converso, he's brought up as a Christian. He has a very good post in the government, because again, outwardly, he's living a very good Christian life. But then in this 1525, this David Reini appears on the scene, and he's like so enamored of how exciting this is, and we can now, pick ourselves up and go back. Eventually, we'll retake the city or the whole country of Eretz Israel away from the Muslims and bring it back. I don't know what they thought, quite honestly. What they think that the Jews are then going to be totally in control. I mean, why are they bringing all these attempt to bring in these Christian, military force to help? Whatever. Who knows? I don't think they probably thought the whole thing through. All right. And so he wants to join up with Reini at this point. He's very, very excited. But Reini doesn't want anything to do with him. I don't know. Maybe it's sort of like who's in charge here? Maybe that's why he didn't want this guy and any part and parcel of him. So he eventually manages. I'm talking about Shlomo Mocho, which will become his name. He manages to leave Portugal, and he gets himself circumcised. Up until then, you couldn't, I guess, properly, have the Brit Milah. And then he changes his name to Shlomo Mocho. Okay. I'm not sure what he thinks. He's Shlomo the king? Whatever. This is the name that he adopts. So first he goes to Salonika, which is, today it's Greece, but, it was part of the Ottoman Empire. It was considered a Turkish city, right? And this is fascinating. He meets Rabbi Yosef Karo. The Rabbi Yosef Karo, we'll learn more about him, but he first goes to Salonika before he ends up in Israel and Tzfat. Okay, and he actually, meets him there. He's already, Rabbi Yosef Karo already has a name for himself, established, a very prominent Rav. And then he starts getting involved with the study of Kabbalah. Maybe that's why I look so askance in Kabbalah. But just bring all these different streams of thought processes that are all kind of floating around together. Became very popular lecturer. He also was a very charismatic young man. All right. I don't know what he looks like, but the descriptions we have are just of David Ruveni. He even goes to Tzfat for a short while, and then he goes back to Rome, and he too, appeals to the Pope. His name is Clement VII. And I mean, I find it really kind of bizarre that the Pope and the Papal States, they initially back, these to me, these really outlandish characters. And he gave all sorts of lectures, and and I'm saying he would have spoken obviously to Jewish people living there, but he's also having these, these big assemblies where Catholics are attending them. And this is, I don't know how he could have known this, or Sasha made it happen that it was so. So he actually predicts that the Tiber River is going to overflow, which it did very, very frequently in these days. Okay. And also there was going to be an earthquake in Portugal. And they actually, both these incredible occurrence and natural phenomena do happen. I don't know, maybe it's just happenstance that he made. I told you the Tiber River often overflowed. So to say that there's going to be a flood, I don't know how brilliant, and Portugal, by the way, is prone to earthquakes. Do you know the author David Liss, Liss? Okay, he wrote one of his books, takes place in Lisbon, and there was an earthquake. Very, very interesting story. Okay, and I believe that's in, I can't remember, it's the 1800s perhaps, or early 1900s, somewhere around that. Okay, so again, now he's claiming that he's got these mystical powers. All right, so there are these two guys, right, going around that part of Europe, preaching, as if they are the Mashiach, and this great redemption, this great geula is going to happen. All right. But, okay, so this is just like, obviously it all peters out, as you can imagine. I'll tell you what their ultimate fate was. Now in retrospect, we're trying to say, well, how did people possibly follow these people? I mean, they certainly were not the Mashiach, neither one of them. They were imposters. I don't know, it went like to their heads, and they had these grandiose, and the amazing thing is that they convinced, thousands, not even just Jews, they're convincing people in the Christian community as well, to take what they're saying as being the truth. So again, this is just, looking back. So people feel that this David Ruveni, that I don't know where he got his grandiose ideas from, and where did he really come from, whatever. So they think that he's totally off the wall, and that this Shlomo Mocho, the one who converts, right, to become to live outwardly a complete Jewish life, that he was just overcome with this fanatic, religious fervor, and that's, what his background is. Some people believe this David Ruveni did somehow come somewhere from the Far East, and maybe there was some sort of a community there that descended from the 10 lost tribes. After we don't know who the 10 lost tribes are. Maybe it comes from around Persia, possibly. Some say even from Ethiopia. It's interesting. And obviously we know the Ethiopian Jews definitely claim, right? They come from the tribe of Dan, all right? And look, they had these amazing schemes. I guess on some level, certainly Shlomo Mochel feels like he was very much genuine, in his feelings. Again, because we don't know anything about David Ruveni, so, is he a total charlatan? It's hard to know, who exactly he was. But what's going to happen is, well, let's look at that last thing. So I told you, first I go to Italy and they're appealing to the Pope to back them, all right? To give them the money or the ammunition so they can raise, a Jewish army, and in turn, hopeful that the Pope will raise a Christian army again to attack the Muslims in the Holy Land. All right. But they eventually go to Charles I, who's the Holy Roman Emperor. It was neither holy nor Roman, or but whatever. That's a little later in history. And he's a very powerful king. So he's in Germany. Really, that's where the Holy Roman Emperor ended up being, in northern Italy. And again, that he should back them and give them the funds, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to understand, a lot of Jews are being very critical of these two men. They recognize that there's something not right there. And they're not backing these two guys. But eventually Charles V also says, who are these nuts, running about trying to convince us, to back them and to raise an army. And they're arrested. Okay. And they are now brought before the Inquisition. They do not use very nice tactics, the Inquisition, right? This is right. And eventually Shlomo Mochel is actually tried, found guilty. He's burned at the stake. That's auto da fe. And that's why I told you he only lives to be 32 years old. And with David Reuveni, though, it's like they're like a little unsure. What really was this man's ultimate fate? What really happened to him? So possibly that he too, obviously they're both, I guess, on some measure found guilty of passing these ridiculous, grandiose ideas, but we don't know 100%. For somehow, I guess the records show that Shlomo Mochel was burned at the stake. We don't know for sure if that same thing happened to David Reuveni, or maybe he just died in prison. Maybe again, remember, he's posing as this ambassador from some land in Arabia, so maybe they were afraid to actually put him to death, because, maybe his credentials are, in fact, true. Who knows? And so I like the last sentence here. It says, thus came to an end the brief period of hope for the Sephardic Jews and the conversos of Europe. Yes.
But since Shlomo Mochel was burned at the stake, doesn't that make him a martyr?
Well, to whom? I mean,
Convert from, once he became and accepted Judaism.
Well, the ironic thing is, he is sometimes referred to as Rav Shlomo Mochel. And I told you, I saw this in a sefer I was looking at. And because I remember I told you he encountered Rabbi Yosef Cairo, who at that point was still living, in Salonika, before I told you he'll ultimately come to Tzfat. So maybe he went through, was introduced to a higher level of Jewish learning at a certain point. That's why I said I couldn't believe the holy city of Jerusalem, they would literally name a street after this man. But no, he was killed because of his crazy ideas. That's why he's put to death. That he's the Mashiach and he's going to bring about the redemption of the Jewish people and they're all going to go back and live in the land of Israel. That was not true at all. You want to think Shafai Tzvi is a martyr? I don't, So, at the very end. But this man also, I would not look upon either one of these individuals, right, in that regard. Yes, I'm so sorry.
We always refer to them as the false Messiah.
Yes,
False
yes.
Did they claim, it's not like Shabtai Tzvi, did they claim to be the Mashiach?
They were giving these
He couldn't be, he's not from the house.
He was
David.
right. Well, so that would be another thing. They would claim that certainly not Reuven. If he's saying he's coming from the 10 lost tribes, that would not be Malchut Yehuda. But the Spanish Jews would have felt that they were part of the Gauls after in the year 70 from the Romans, and that's how they end up in all these ultimately in these European countries, so that they in fact would have come from Malchus Yehuda. So right, that would make more sense that his claim to some legitimacy might be, more bona fide. But there's also a concept and a belief that should be a Mashiach ben Yosef. There are two messiahs. There's a Mashiach ben Yosef and there's a Mashiach ben David. So this Reuveni could have laid claim in that regard because he's saying he's coming a descendant of those 10 lost tribes.
How did it come as Mashiach ben Yosef? The Torah
I
doesn't mention it.
I don't know either. I'll have
The
to.
Torah doesn't
I'll
mention it.
consult with my either my son in Detroit, he knows a lot, or my brother in Yerushalayim.
So I bought the source of it.
I don't know. I'll find out. I'll let you. And there it mentions it. Oh, okay, all right. I the last time I think I studied the book of Yechezkel was in high school, and I don't know how much I got out of it at that time. Yes.
If he did not claim that he's Mashiach, he just claimed that the signs that Mashiach is coming and all these things. Personally, I don't see anything wrong with it. He says,
Whatever, but it was not the time, and they were not, obviously. I'll review everything about that. Did they make that actual claim that they were the Mashiach or not? I have to, go through here. But I don't think I have that written here per se, but they are in general, in retrospect, considered the VA Sheker. They are considered to be, people who are claiming this incredible thing, or that they have these powers to so influence, these Christian rulers, and to bring about a geula, and it was not the right time. Has never been so far the right time.
Was there religious fervor and false messiahs in Christianity at that time?
What they did, they had a lot of schisms, and this time period, I'll do that separately more when I talk about the Jews of Ashkenaz. This is the time period where Martin Luther is going to come to the fore. He wants to reform the Catholic Church. Then he breaks away and he forms his own religion, Protestantism. It's all the same time period, right? And that could be also why and then it devolves into what's called the Counter-Reformation, and then the Catholic Church fighting back against the Reformation. And we as the Jews, we are always caught in the middle. That's why I haven't come to them yet, but times are also going to be terrible for those Jews of Ashkenaz, during this whole time period. And again, that's why eventually they're going to move eastward to Poland/Lithuania. Every time I read about it, I think to myself, oh, why are you going there? Because we know what happened, unfortunately, in the end. But who knows? Do we have crystal balls? We don't know the future. But if somebody's claiming something, and the Rabbanim are not backing this individual, so the rest of the Jewish population should not be putting their faith, no matter how charismatic they are or what great preachers they are. If you can't find, legitimate, rabbinic Jewish leaders to be, again, it's more like the masses, maybe the more downtrodden people. They are looking for some salvation, some end to their misery, and they are the ones who are more easily, swayed, right, to go after these individuals. I would bring in some contemporary thing, but I don't know where you all stand politically, so I won't. Think you know where I'm going, right? Okay. Right, but he was for a good cause. He wasn't claiming to be the Mashiach. Yeah. He was amazing what he did. Yes, absolutely. So, in any case, I think I have concluded for today. And next time we'll go on. I'll learn more then about Rabbi Yosef Karo and his great accomplishment, and then I'm also going to talk about then the Arizal. These are both great Rabbanim who come out of the city of Tzfat in Eretz Yisrael in the 1500s. And look at the impact these truly great figures had on all of Yiddishkeit. It's like, you know, they were amazing, amazing people. Let me just see if I can figure this out, how to turn this off. I have a mouse at home, so I'm not sure how to do it, doing it. If you could turn that part off for me, thank you. Great to see all of you. May you all continue in good health. I actually went the other week, just to be on the safe side. I went, you know, for one of those tests. It was negative. So here's